Before I start this vlog about the latest Warner Brothers animation movie, Tom and Jerry, I have a little bit of a few disclaimers just in case. First of all, I want to tell you that I originally I planned to watch this movie on a movie theater, but guess what? I got sick. As you can see in this recording, I am still a little bit sick. Don't worry. It's not what you think. It's actually a little bit of a nasty cold. It's a nasty cold. So if you see me a little bit sickly or something like that, then I apologize just in case. Is that sometimes even when you're sick or not, there are times that you just want to, well, keep yourself occupied, even when you're talking about a movie or something like that. And second of all, Tom and Jerry. Not gonna lie, it was part of my childhood. I enjoy watching the cartoons. Yeah, I watch it a lot. But what do I think right now? Oh. People are not gonna believe me, but I'm gonna be honest. I hate Tom and Jerry. Wait. Let me explain. I hate Tom and Jerry, but that doesn't mean that I acknowledge what these cartoons did for the cartoon industry, about cartoons and humor and all this. I acknowledge it. They have great slapstick that is how can I say, it becomes relevant on how to make good comedy, especially with the combination of the slapstick and the special effects and the exaggerated emotions. We're thankful to that. So, why do I hate Tom and Jerry now? Can you believe it that it's more of a petty reason? It's not exactly very serious. It's because I'm a cat bias. Sorry, I'm a cat. I like cats. I grew up with cats. The more I begin to see Tom and Jerry a lot, unfortunately I found out that Tom and Jerry is basically the reason why Hollywood is very biased against cats. It's kind of the sole reason why, the reason people hate cats, well, for the most part, is because of Tom and Jerry. As Hollywood especially. Hollywood is kind of like the guilty one that makes it saying that cats are always evil. And I'm getting too sick of that trope. So I blame a lot Tom and Jerry on that. I do remember that there was the Musketeers episode of Tom and Jerry. The first time I saw it, that was my final nail in the coffin to Tom and Jerry. But it sunk even deeper when you kind of see like the background that it kind of swept the Oscars as animated shorts. Even when one of them, it won by basically plagiarizing a Bugs Bunny cartoon. But this is kind of like a long story that I'm not gonna debate too much into it. But yeah, as you can tell, the movie I saw is Tom and Jerry. And the movie, like I said, I was sick, and because I didn't want it to, spread around people, and because of my, the mild fevers that I had, I didn't want to risk anyone about it, not even myself. So this is why I stayed home and decided to watch the movie on HBO Max. Yeah, I had to pay for the streaming. But well, I was sick, so I consider it a little bit of a necessary evil. But hey, there's still some good stuff here on HBO Max at least. Maybe I could rewatch Mau Mau and Heroes of Pure Heart, which this one makes justice to cats more than Tom and Jerry. Which is also, I want to tell you that it's kind of funny because I do remember that in the 90s there was another Tom and Jerry movie which was animated, and I do remember kind of enjoying it, despite that they made one of the biggest crimes that is just about giving Tom and Jerry a voice. This is kind of like the only fallacy that I could say about this. But now I saw this one, I wasn't surprised of how the trailer looked. And by the way, here's my opinion of this film. I thought that Flora and Ulysses from last week is one of the worst movies I have seen this year. Congratulations, Flora and Ulysses. You got competition. I really don't like this movie. And right now, I finished watching this film and I'm still debating to see which one is worse. Because these are two kind of horrible ways to make movie making. One of them is basically kind of like a bragging points of showing off that you have almost half of the superhero market, and you just make a movie that makes it a little bit too hallmarky out of it. Well, in the other, you're gonna show off that you got a property of the Hanna-Barbera production, Chuck Jones, whatever, who created Tom and Jerry, whatever, the property, which is one of the most iconic, well, let's say cat and mouse cartoon enemies. And you decided to create kind of like a whole frame Roger Rabbit style cartoon in which every single animal, no joke, every single animal is a cartoon with live action humans, which this one kind of strikes as one thing that I always said, that the biggest risk about when you want to make kind of like humans kind of interacting with cartoons, especially in live action cartoons, is that when the humans act like cartoons, you feel kind of like a disconnection out of it. And this one is kind of proof of that. My God, that I hated this one. And I just don't hate it just because it's Tom and Jerry. This movie had a lot of problems. That is not just Tom and Jerry. So what do we got in this film? We got, of course, our duo, Tom and Jerry. They get to New York. Probably the cleanest New York you could ever see. Both of them are technically trying to find a way to live their own things while still being enemies. Tom the cat, he's just looking for a place to live, but he's just trying to make ends meet by how can I say, being kind of like a street pianist. And Jerry, of course, trying to live, Jerry the Mouse, of course, trying to live, trying to find a home. And of course, like always, trying to make Tom life miserable, which is technically his whole agenda. That is until both they go into this kind of like the richest hotel in New York, which is kind of a little bit like Hotel Plaza from. There is a Hotel Plaza, yeah, from Home Alone 2. And this is where we meet our main human character, which is this girl played by her name, Chloe Grace Moretz, which she's better known as Hit Girl from the Kick-Ass movies. I was right ever since I saw the trailer. Ever since I saw the trailer, I said this: she's gonna be the worst part of this movie. And I was right. Not only she was a terrible actress. She was also a really awful character. Basically, she's kind of like this millennial type girl who we just see her. She just started off the movie kind of quitting her job on a good Wi-Fi communicating iPhone, and she gets into this hotel trying to find a job. But she just manipulate and scare off a woman who was about to get a job at this hotel. And what she does is that she basically steals her resume, and then she just say, "Hey, I'm this woman who has this qualification, so here I am. I got the job." Little did they know that that she handed out the resume, but even she rip apart the name part and give it to the guy, and they're like, "Oh, okay." Look guys, sometimes you gotta, I know that you wanted to try out to make kind of like a cartoon or something like that, but sometimes you have to, there's a certain believability that you gotta hold on. For example, I am pretty sure that no one will accept a resume torn apart or ripped in pieces. No one. I've been into job interviews, and job interviews always they always tell you that a good presentation is how you handle your resume. The better best presented the resume, it kind of shows how responsible you are with the material that you work on and how you present yourself. So you're not going to tell me that. How are you going to tell me that this girl got a job and kind of like a very big deal job, and she handed out a resume that was ripped apart? Sorry that I got into this, but it bothers the hell out of me, especially since that hotel is run by this idiot of a boss that I don't remember the actor's name, but he had a beard that for some reason he looked like I swear that he was the same guy who run the hotel in the Witches from the last year. And also the number one worker in this one is none other than Michael Pena. Michael Pena, he's the one who's suspicious to this girl, played by Chloe. All things here and there, and they're all preparing because the hotel is gonna host this big wedding about this two rich people who they're gonna spend a lot of money, and they're gonna have this big extravaganza wedding with even peacocks and elephants. Boy, I'll get to that just in case. But the whole plot centers on that, and well, Tom and Jerry get into the hotel, and since they don't want anything bad happen to the hotel, they just want to keep the reputation. Of course, they just want to find a way to kick Jerry out of it, and Tom gets involved. The girl kind of finds out that basically, I'm just telling you the whole thing, and mostly it's just this plot in which they insert Tom and Jerry in it. That's basically it. It's basically kind of like a very, very paper thin, very cliche kind of story that they created in order to appeal the younger demographic with like, hey, look at these actors playing along with those cartoons. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of those things because it's kind of like the same thing that they did with the Smurfs, in which it's because when you treat cartoons like they just want to pander to the younger audiences, that it kind of feels that you're isolating the other kind of audience who watch cartoons, which is none other than even the parents. Adults also watch cartoons. You, and I'm kind of sick of that, that mentality that just because there's animation, you're gonna put it in a genre saying for kids. If I could rule the world one of these days, I will one of my orders will say that I will completely abolish the kids genre, and I'll put animation, because animation should never more be a kid thing, especially when this is a cartoon that thinks that it's pandering to the children, and they think that, but they must mostly look themselves like just some foolish adult saying that, hey, I'm hip with the kid, look at me. And I'll get to that in more details almost right now. I'm gonna get out of the way, in which it's kind of, again, pointless to talk about how it looks animated. Because if there's only one thing positive that I could say about this movie, is that the animation of the animals, they don't look bad. I'm glad that it's 2D animated, and I prefer this 2D animation mesh out into this live action animation better than horrible CGI like Flora and Elisa's did last week. I prefer that. It's because that makes the whole task a little bit more challenging. Because although they didn't exactly go to make it look as better as Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Because at least in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you're gonna notice that there's a lot more interaction of a live action actor with a cartoon character. But this one doesn't. But Tom and Jerry the movie doesn't do that much. You're not gonna see, for example, scenes of, for example, a character of a live action guy kind of grabbing the character or kind of giving a hug or something like that. I noticed that they don't do that, which is kind of it's kind of like a little bit of a lazy step that they did. And it doesn't help that you do not. I don't know if it's me or something like that, but I noticed that the 2D animation when they are meshed in the live action background, it does feel a little bit floaty, considering that maybe I didn't notice, but they kind of lack kind of like cast shadows or something to make them feel like these cartoon characters are solid. So pretty much that's kind of like the only thing I can accept on how it is. Also I gotta give it a little bit credit that they wanted to be too ambitious. That not only that Tom and Jerry are the animated characters, but every single animal is animated. There's the fish, there's other cats, other dogs walking. Oh, and by the way, yes, other Tom and Jerry secondary characters appear. Most notably, of course, Spike, the dog. He appears there because there's no Tom and Jerry without Spike. Maybe the show should have been called Tom, Jerry, and Spike. That's the only thing that I will say about the only thing positive I can say about this movie. But the rest, get ready to hear out a lot of downhill things about this. So much that I don't even know where to start. Like, for example, you're gonna notice that. Remember that I say that this movie tries to be hip with the children, by saying, "Hey, look cool, we're awesome," and all these things. Yeah, this movie is. The music is really, really hip-hoppish. There's a lot of those raps, some Latino things here and there. Don't get me started that since it's a Warner Brothers property, it wanted to. You know what? I'm gonna stop. How can I say that a lot of the music, I would say, so hip-hoppish. They wanted to feel hip. That yeah, we're on the time that we live kind of like hip-hoppish or everything. Even the kind of like the style of everything. Although even they look so, even though they kind of looks for a music like that, I still can't believe that I've seen kind of like the most cleanest New York I have ever seen. And the more the music kind of play out, I was actually kind of imagining that sooner or later they're gonna put a Chris Brown music. Oh my God! Once I said that, I think that you're gonna. I am seeing pitchforks and fire. Yeah, going to get me. I'm sorry. That's what I thought about it. Now let me emphasize a little bit more about the acting. Like I said, I can't believe that a talented actress like Chloe Grace Moretz, she kind of really stooped low in this kind of acting. I bet she's basically going for a Razzie Award in this season, because my God, that she acts so fake. I'm gonna leave it at the character just in case at the moment, but the way she acts, the way she emotes is Disney Channel fabricated bullshit. Because the way she basically kind of have this emotion, she's like, remember that I complained about the little girl playing Flora last week, that most of the time she feels like she's kind of cracking a smile a lot, so much that when she makes an emotion, you kind of don't believe it. It's pretty sad that I'm comparing a bad acting of a child to with a bad acting of a young adult, because she's always like, she kind of like the way she talks. She's like, oh well, I'm gonna talk like that, because the millennial talk like this, and it kind of sounds like a Disney Channel millennial human. Yeah. That's the kind of acting that she does. And when she kind of does an emotion, like for example, she sees a mouse or something like that, she's like, instead of, she doesn't give, the correct amount of vocalization of her emotions. She's always looking too pretty, I would say. So pretty that it's, again, too fabricated. Oh my God. And I can't believe that. I mean, she was Hit Girl from Kick-Ass! How did that happen? I mostly blame the acting department and saying that, okay, act for cartoon, you're acting in a cartoon. No, you don't need to put effort. Just act like you are performing for children. You don't need to, act, like you're really scared or something like that. Just entertain them. Entertain them, healthily. And by the way, this also goes for almost every single actor there. I already told you about the guy who's the manager, Michael Pena. Poor guy. He's basically kind of like the only guy who almost tries, but it's kind of ruined, of course, by the movie. It's basically that all the leftovers of the charisma that he had from Fantasy Island last year is gone. What else there is? There is the couple that are gonna get married. They barely kind of appears. Honestly, I can't tell if they're trying to be funny or not. There's also the guy who kind of becomes the boyfriend of our main lead. He's just there to show that there's kind of like a friend or romantic tension that they just wanted to shoehorn in. And what else there is? They got Ken Juan. He's basically kind of like this perfectionist cook that he only appeared for like 5 minutes into the movie, just saying that he just wants to create the perfect cooking for the wedding or something like that. Also, there is this girl who apparently they say that she was raised by wolves and she's been hired. I mean, if they got... she doesn't look like this. What was the name of the girl? She's played by Patsy Ferran. Apparently they say that she kind of acts like a psycho, but she's only there to just say that she's like awkward scenes and she kind of appears out of nowhere, but I didn't see anything bad about her except that she just kind of talking awkward scenes and go like kind of like a creepy smile. Look, if you want me to believe that she is kind of like a creepy girl that just so happens to work on in this prestigious hotel, at least make some makeup out of it. Gosh. And now I don't care. I'm gonna spoil you a lot of things about this movie because a lot of where the movie mostly fails is mostly in the content. Like I already said, a lot of the human characters we give a damn because we don't care. All these people are really awful, and if a movie that tries to make us feel for a main character, it didn't work, especially when this character basically just quit on the job for saying that I didn't feel like it, bye or something like that, and then she basically ruined the life of another person who is excited to get a job, and she manipulates and extort and lie in order to steal her resume. And during the whole and I forgot to also mention that also part of the bad acting of Chloe is that I swear that half of the movie she always posted like this. I think that she's most of the time in the movie she just has her hands on her hips like this. I swear. And given her fake smile, and then over the course of the movie, I was beginning to believe that she is actually the villain. So much that she just tries to have that a lot of the things that Michael Pena technically said, he was actually being true. He was being responsible, and guess what? He's painted as kind of like the villain of the movie. I mean, he's the guy that say that I know that you're one of those millennials that think that life is in a pantry or something like that, and she's like, I don't care. Yeah. And apparently this wedding we got the couple in which the woman who I forgot the name of the actress and the guy who I don't care the name of the actor. Apparently the woman technically befriends our main character because she helped her find this kind of like this diamond wedding ring that was stolen by Jerry. I'll get to the cat and mouse later, by the way. And thinking about it, that this movie technically is the plot mainly centers on the humans that we don't care, and Tom and Jerry is basically just there. I mean, they do have to, they have their roles, but of course, nothing else. Oh, and by the way, this rich couple owns a cat and a dog, and by the way, the dog, yes, is Spike. I'm surprised that the cat wasn't, the Tom love interest that I don't remember what's her name. I was talking about her. Okay. What else I can say about this? Because I don't have much else to say. The boyfriend was there. Jerry is trying, and Jerry is being a pest on the hotel. So our main character, played by Chloe, she hires Tom. Even though Michael Pena is like, what, really? What, really? So, and they do, the usual stuff that in a Tom and Jerry movie, and basically this Chloe just lies and cheats out of her way, but still, the more she was into the movie, and she kind of begins to complain and saying that, oh well, I just did that because I'm not good at anything, and I don't feel that I don't have qualification or something like that, or like that. I'll get to that, by the way. By the way, do you know that this movie also has poop jokes? Yeah. Let that sink in. Real mature movie. By the way, speaking of villainy, in which it makes us want to believe that our main character... Oh yeah, speaking of making us believe that our main character, played by Chloe, it makes us believe that she's a good girl or she's our protagonist or something like that. Here's something that I always complain about Tom and Jerry always, is that a lot of the cartoons, Tom and Jerry cartoons, Jerry is basically the villain. He's a lot of the times the villain. And he technically always wins. I mean, Jerry's the one that's, in this, let's take for example in the movie, he's the one he's the one being the pest inside the hotel. He's the one that's stealing things. And the movie, apparently they always wanted to do with Chloe is that they're just that, well, he's just kind of being innocent or something like that. Jerry is not the innocent character that people always thought to be, and that kind of pisses me off in one way or another. And this movie is no exception. And basically, also this is one of those movies in which they kind of claim that, the biggest problem is that Tom and Jerry doesn't get along. Okay, what do you expect? They're cat and dogs, but the more you put in hindsight, I think that maybe Tom is basically kind of like the most victim of them all. Yeah, I know that he gets victimized a lot because he's not the brightest guy ever. This is actually something that I asked to animation teacher, in which it was one of these days that we had history of animation, and we were exploring the plagiarism of that Tom and Jerry cartoon that steal the idea of that Bugs Bunny cartoon. And I did really express my dislike to Tom and Jerry, and I did wanted to say, okay, but putting in a little bit of a hindsight, kind of like overanalyzing. What's the appeal of branding Tom as the villain when Jerry is always being the villain? So basically, my teacher is saying that, well, is that the humor is that Tom is not very good at it. He's just as dumb. He's just dumb. I would like to sink in, because this is kind of like an interesting debate that you could ever have. I could buy that at least on this movie, but it always bothered me, this Chloe character, in which she always even begin to take credit of the things that she didn't do, so much that even at the end, the movie also, it kind of turns a little bit into Ratatouille, and it basically makes Michael Pena being fired for something that he didn't do. You still kind of have Chloe kind of being the saint or everything, and so much that she's even kind of like invited to the wedding and becomes friends with the wedding bride. They shoehorn in this plot about this, that apparently the guy, the groom, he doesn't listen to his bride or everything, that it comes out of nowhere, and then there's kind of like this breakup that happens, and we don't buy it. And there's also this scene in which Chloe says that, okay, we want you to go out, become friends, but we want you out. You want to stay here in the hotel? Well, you just go out and socialize and try to become friends. And of course they get, and of course they become quote unquote friends until they get arrested by animal control because they catch a home run ruining a Yankees game, in which of course it sends it to the animal control. And guess what? The funny thing is that at that moment I was like, okay, I bet Droopy's gonna be there. And there he was! And you know why I knew Droopy was gonna be there? Because I didn't mention that while the slapsticks were okay, I think that there are a few of them that were actually reused slapstick from the old cartoons. And once they get to the animal shelter scene, it reminded me of the movie, the animated movie, just in case. The one from I think it was from the 90s. And you know that in the 90s movie, there's also a Droopy cameo, and he was in the animal shelter. And I absolutely knew that he was gonna be there. Boy, I nailed it. So what was I talking about? Because a lot of this, because Tom and Jerry were most kind of like used like tools, and I understand that it's pretty challenging to make kind of like an hour and a half movie of this cat and mouse duo, especially when they're not talking. But it really felt like it was. But I think they kind of, if you wanted to make kind of like a movie about the friendship slash what was it called, the war between Tom and Jerry, you kind of missed that opportunity. Instead of having this kind of movie, trying to make a movie about exploring why they're kind of like enemies, I would say. Because I mean, they're enemies because they're natural enemies. They're a cat and mouse. And again, apparently Jerry is there to make Tom's life miserable. That's pretty much what my gist out of it. But okay, continuing spoiling the movie, apparently Michael Pena gets the bright idea to have his revenge sneaking those two into the wedding, which is a wedding that I did mention that this guy who is self-obsessed with making kind of like the best wedding in the world, in this Hindu style wedding, in which he even bought an animated elephant and a tiger and peacocks, and I'm pretty sure that elephants and tigers, when having them on a wedding in New York, is not only illegal, but it's also dangerous. Not even the money in the world you can get these. Unless there's kind of like a governmental how can I say permit, or because the hotels are not capable of doing that. You need kind of like bigger permissions to do that, and as well you need tighter security for that. You need for I mean, elephants are dangerous, but they can be tame. I understand, but I didn't see anyone tame. Oh yeah, what I'm saying, it's a cartoon. It's a cartoon. We don't have to think twice about it. Even an animated tiger, which I'm pretty sure that they could eat someone. Here I am, just being cynical. Oh my god, what I'm saying. So because of Tom and Jerry is a disaster, and of course, our Chloe main character apparently she just say that, oh my god, I feel bad for this couple that we the audience don't give a shit about because we didn't even buy that they were in love. They're just kind of like this rich people who they just managed to buy things, and of course it is revealed that yeah, she basically faked her resume because apparently she's just saying that. Oh my god, I'll get to that. She gets fired, but everyone feels bad about it. Even her quasi-boyfriend goes to her and he's like, well, you learn from your mistakes. She stole a resume! This is not about, doing a mistake or something like that. You know what? I'll go for it right now. I don't know what this movie was trying to do. This movie wanted to prove people that you can't see the qualifications of a human to get a job with just a paper known as a resume. Granted, I agree with some parts because we live in a society. Sometimes when we live in a society, people just want to see you, showing your qualifications on your life, your resume, on what you can do and everything. But a resume is not just a piece of paper. I kind of learned that it's a little bit kind of like a work of art, in which you have to put your best qualities and everything, how you describe, and it's basically describing yourself on how you look at it. And when you do kind of like a job interview, people doesn't just see you about just giving you the paper. They just read it, yeah, but there's also a job interview in which they say how you handle the interview, how you connect to people and everything. And this is called first impressions. When you are applying for a job, you technically get a first impression, and yeah, when you go to this big job here and there, I do agree that there is kind of like this pickiness on these job industries that they just want to see how well you do at it and how qualified you are and your experiences, especially when there are people who they deserve a chance to work on the material that this is something that you don't get on schools. You learn with experience, and even you gotta give them a chance, and not even with by qualification or something like that. So yeah, but this girl didn't prove shit. She just proved to be a villain. She just proved to be a manipulative villain that she kind of stole someone else's life. And she only got kind of like a slap on her wrist. No. If you wanted to show me that, don't put me the resume things and saying that resume is a piece of paper. Resumes are more than that. Qualifications is another thing. So this is something that you should handle it a little bit more thoughtfully instead of it's just a piece of paper. The qualification is just that. And this is something that even Michael Pena even said. Michael Pena said that these are kind of like the millennial things that their life is gonna be put in a platter or something like that. Oh my god. Sorry, this is kind of like the biggest thing that pisses me off about this movie. And then, of course, they wanted to make this reunion of that love story that we basically don't care. And of course, Michael Pena even thought he's kind of like the only normal human being in this movie that he kind of treated like an ass, like a doofus. We got this climax that doesn't feel like a climax, and with that, of course, we end the movie. Oh, and by the way, I did stay up to the credits, and there is a post-credit scene. You want to know what the post-credit scene? Yeah, I'll ruin you. It's a bad joke of the guy now married and everything. He's like, hey, there's the bill of 2 weddings. Welcome to the hotel. I knew that this movie was gonna be bad. I just knew it. But again, it's not because of my bias against Tom and Jerry. I already told you why I don't like Tom and Jerry now. I already told you why I don't grow fond of it now. It's kind of like a passing subject. I already told you that despite everything, I respect Tom and Jerry. I respect the people that like the show. But there is no respect on a movie that respects no one. They just watch that is just a cartoon, and they just wanted to imitate life as a cartoon without making kind of like a proper story. Say what you want, but I prefer the 90s animated version because even though it has kind of like the bad idea of giving Tom and Jerry the voices and there, Tom and Jerry was actually a little bit more relevant. Even though they shoehorned in this story of this orphan girl running away from her evil aunt. Her evil aunt and lawyer, I think that was it. Well, she was hoping about her father, being Indiana Jones. Yeah, that's actually the plot of the 90s movie. But at least the girl was likable. At least the girl had help from Tom and Jerry. At least Tom and Jerry, they were characters in that movie. So the real Tom and Jerry movie is that 90s movie. Not this one. This one is another tool that wanted to be hip to a younger demographic, ignoring that adults also enjoy cartoons. And basically, it's just people just acting for a paycheck and just to act cartoons, saying, "Hey, this will kill off time for these little people." But it gives in return nothing. I mean, it doesn't give anything in return. It just gives out cheap laugh. And probably also show how to root for really a manipulative, lying, cheating woman. I'm sorry, Chloe. I know you're a good actress. It's your character. Your character is awful. So yeah, I just blame all this to a freaking cat and mouse.